Shaved off all my hair. I went from a hippie to a happy.
To the mind of a monk.
Welcome to Beyond the Sugarcoat.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Sugarcoat. Today, I'm interviewing my friend Lakshmi, and I feel much honored to have met him through my journey. Lakshmi actually follows Krishna, and I just went to his 75th birthday party, and I learned he was a monk, and he is so humble. He never even told me all this stuff, and I was shocked about all the people that he's met. Really important spiritual people have taught a lot of knowledge, but he keeps it quiet. That's part of being spiritual, I guess, his humbleness, and he's following that.
Thank you for the invitation.
How did you get to where you are? Who were you prior to being Lakshmi?
Well, I guess you could call me a Jersey boy. Really, just a typical, normal child growing up. Very normal, very average journey in life. A lot of sports on all the sporting teams in high school: football, basketball, baseball.
So you're an all-American boy.
Yeah, you would look at me at that time and say exactly that. My parents were married for 32 years, and they at later point divorced. I don't think any child likes to see their parents divorced, but in my case, I was a fledgling adult. I went to a Catholic school. I grew up Catholic. I come from Italian descent.
How did you get into this journey?
The change came when I went to college, and it was like a liberation for me. I grew up in the flower child era. I grew up in the heart of the hippie era. I think the one thing I could say was the good and the bad and the ugly of it all was I was able to be exposed to many different things. It was a time where people were wanting to know, especially in college. You had all these different courses, you had all these different events that were going on. So I really felt exposed to culture, both US culture and world culture, which was really good for me because it was something I later found out I was really thirsty and craving these experiences. I was English major, art minor. So I had a lot of involvement with literature and world culture and the arts. So this gave me opportunities to experience different things that I hadn't experienced before. And one of the aspects of experience was spirituality. I really gravitated towards Eastern mysticism. Being a literature major, a lot of the poets and authors that I studied were influenced by Bhagavad Gita. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Gary Snyder was a Buddhist, Allen Ginsberg. All these different personalities somehow or another in their journey came across Eastern mysticism, then incorporated it into their art. Anyone who was actually a little open to experiences beyond their own little cloistered life, I think, had a brush minimally with Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is a very popular book. I always attribute my beginning on my journey to an epic poetry course I had. And one of the epic poems that we studied happened to be Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a segment of the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is considered the largest epic poem in the history of the world. Me and a few other students would go into New York City, come in contact with different groups, particularly Hare Krishna group. And that's where I got my first Mega Gita. That was a karmic juncture in my life. I was going with the flow. It wasn't like I had any idea where this was taking me. I was enjoying the ride, because when I was in college and when I was getting into Eastern mysticism, I took a meditation course and I began meditating then. The types of music I was listening to, I gravitated towards more of the psychedelic Eastern influence. The Beatles had their Eastern influence. Things just kind of stuck out. My focus of attention was going there towards Eastern mysticism. Most people would, if George Harrison was singing Within You, Without You, they might have just thought, oh, that's kind of cool. It was all starting to gel for me. The music, the pop cultural influence, the readings that I was doing in class, the authors and poets that I was attracted to, like all these things started to coalesce. I would say around my junior year, that's when I became a vegetarian. And one of the things I began to see as a result of that was life and how life was affected by our action, animal slaughter and the whole 9 yards of that. I just began to think of all of that in relationship to where it was coming from. I had that aha moment. I lived in an apartment off campus, and these where I started, to have these kinds of realizations about my life and my lifestyle, which eventually fed into my diet. What am I eating? Why am I eating this? I incorporated all this into my lifestyle. I graduated college. I got a job as a teacher, and I was now chanting every day. Mm-hmm. And I was studying the Gita more intensely. Then I discovered that one of my good buddies was also into the same thing. We grew up, went to high school together. He went off and became a big hippie also, and he was a musician. I was a musician. We got together, we played music together, formed a band together, and then we began to discuss things philosophically. So we took the giant step of going to a temple in New York City, the Hare Krishna temple. Okay. That was a big jump because now I was incorporating certain aspects of sadhana, which means meditation, etc., study. And then we actually went to see what the lifestyle looked like. After visiting the temple, meeting people who were monks, I became really seriously considering doing that because I felt like I really didn't want to move on to the next juncture of my life, which meant career and family, until I felt like I had my spiritual life together. And by this time, I was ready to do something seriously. I had taken the LSAT test, which is the law boards. I was gearing up to go to law school. And then I met a particular Swami, and he influenced me greatly. He was humble, he was charismatic, he was a great musician. He was a wanderer. He had a bus that was fixed up like a temple, and he went to different places in the United States, Canada, Mexico.
Was he Indian or Caucasian?
No, he was from the San Francisco hippie era at that time in the 60s. Actually, he was Italian-American, and me and my friend from high school, we both became monks at the same time. I made the decision to become a monk. I shaved off all my hair.
Wow. So you went from a hippie to a monk.
Yeah. I went from a hippie to a happy.
And so your family was supportive?
I would say yes. Given the fact that I came from a blue-collar family, the fact that I was going to go to law school, given all of those elements, when they finally met me in my new garb as a monk, and my new lifestyle, they kind of rallied pretty quickly. Now I'm wearing orange saffron robes like you would see in any renunciate out of India.
Were you living at a place with everybody?
The first 3 years, I lived on a bus. That bus was my temple, my sanctuary, my meditation. And we traveled throughout the United States, and we went to different places that would not normally have the experience of a Western monk. Places like Birmingham, Alabama, Shreveport, Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, Gainesville, Florida.
How did people in those areas take you guys?
We had a couple of levels of reaction. First level of reaction is like, you guys are crazy. Second level of reaction was curious. You guys look strange. Okay, I'm not used to this, but what are you about? And the third level of reaction were people who were on their journey. They're on their path, and they were looking for a way of life that could provide them with questions that they had. Who am I? What is my purpose in life? How I should be using this human energy Do I just get a job and work 60 hours a week and do the old grind and the family and all that? So those tiers of reaction, people who just totally rejected us, people who were like basically innocent and curious, and then those that were on their journey.
You were a monk for 13 years?
13 years, I was a celibate monk. I was actually part of an institution, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I was asked to take over one of the ashrams in New York City. It was a very large ashram.
You're this monk at the prime of your youth.
Right.
And you've given up continuing on to law school and all that.
Right. Yep.
What were you thinking as a monk? What's in the mind of a monk? What's in a day of a monk?
It's geared around service to God. So my day looked like this. I got up at 3:30 in the morning. I took a cold shower. Then we had a service at 4:30 in the morning. So prior to the service at 4:30 in the morning, I would begin my day of meditation. So I would meditate for about a half hour. And then we would have a community service. And we would come together. We would sing chants together, play musical instruments. That would last for maybe about an hour. After that, I would continue with my meditation till around 8:30 in the morning. And then we would all have a communal breakfast. Everyone proceeded to do whatever their duties were, the responsibilities. My responsibility was managerial. So I managed the whole ashram. I was the in charge, and I had department heads. And department heads would answer to me, and we would have regular meetings and organization.
Who did you answer to?
I answered to governing body committee. Their responsibility was to make sure all the temples throughout the world adhered to certain rules and regulations.
So you were the head of the biggest Hare Krishna 𝐒𝐮𝐽 group in the world.
Yep.
Wow, look who I'm sitting from your shoulder. What made you not be a monk anymore?
One of the things is during your growth and development, you find your path that you're going to walk for the rest of your life. As the Buddha said, that once you know the direction, you just face it and keep walking. So I knew my direction, but according to our system of development, there's a couple of different stations of life that you can go through. The monk stage was considered the student stage. And in that stage of development, you're celibate, but you can give up celibacy if you want and get married. Your married stage is also considered a spiritual path. It's not like, oh, I just gave up everything. Still, we observe certain rules and regulations, and the function of marriage is the wife helps the husband helps the wife, and the parents together help their children grow spiritually. I got married, and 41, I had my first child. The person that I married and had children with was supportive. My current wife is, she's also initiated, and I'm retired now, but I was a teacher, but I had my spiritual obligations, my duty as a teacher, my duty as a father and husband.
Now you're married, you have your kids. What happens to you next?
You went to my 75th birthday. So I'm 75 right now, and by God's grace, I still have good energy. So I'm still teaching a lot. I teach the psychology and philosophy of yoga, and then I do teaching sessions in homes and amongst groups, etc. And really, that is my future. I just continue to develop that.
I want to go into something a little more personal and maybe a little juicy.
All right.
She is not your first wife that you've mentioned that you married. How long were you married for? What happened and what was happening in your mind with your spirituality?
My first marriage, I was married for 13 years and had one boy. And unfortunately, I just felt at that time it was best that we part.
Aside from the spirituality part, how did you feel as a human being to see that happen to your family?
Oh, that was the last thing I wanted to happen to my family. The last thing in my mind was divorce and separation, split custody, the whole complication that arises emotionally and otherwise.
Did it change your feelings about your spirituality? How
Not
you
at
approached
all.
it?
No, I felt like the one thing about spirituality is it is practical.
Mm-hmm.
It is implementable in your life. It means not that you're just walking around all blissed out.
Right.
When the life challenges do develop, that you know to take shelter of God is a very real approach to deal with your challenges. Most people need shelter. They need somewhere to go. So some people take shelter of intoxication. They'll drink more or they'll take drugs. Other people will take shelter in sex or
Mm-hmm.
become very promiscuous. So there's a lot of different things you can take shelter. When the challenges came up, I had, I think, the strength of conviction to meet those challenges, being dependent on God and His mercy. Nothing ever changed for me. That was consistent. Consistently practiced my spirituality, consistently taught spirituality, a consistent thing through my father's cancer and his passing away, my mother's cancer and her passing away, my younger sister's cancer and her passing away, my older sister who gave birth to 4 boys, she lost 3 of them. All of these unique to me challenges in life, I was able to meet those challenges and help others, like my older sister, who did go through 3 deaths in her family. One boy, 9-year-old, he died of cancer. The 14-year-old died in a car crash, and the 19-year-old mixed alcohol and drugs.
Oh my God. How is your sister?
My sister is my hero because she met probably one of the most difficult things that a parent could meet in their life.
Yeah.
Just one is enough, and she went through it 3 times.
Did you counsel her at all?
Yeah.
With your spirituality?
She grew up as a Roman Catholic, but she was sorely disappointed because really she really didn't get any solace from the counseling she received there. At that time, I moved from New York ashram to Puerto Rico, and I counseled her, and then I invited her to come with me, and she came with me, and she spent a couple of weeks in the ashram.
I guess you were able, especially being her family member too, able to help her look deeper into things, like why does this happen?
Right.
And nobody's special. You know, I'm sure you guys talked about karma and previous lives and how all this led up to maybe these events. Did she believe what you were feeding her?
Actually, it was the only thing that made sense to her. She received counseling from professional counselors, from a priest. The only thing that really made sense to her was the things that we discussed. Karma, eternality of the soul, reincarnation, all those things resonated with her. And really, it's a philosophy of hope.
And that you have the power to change some of it with you. Like you said earlier in our conversation, our actions.
Right. The average person, when they lose somebody, they think that's the end of their existence. According to the philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita, you're eternal. Just as you would change your clothes at night, you change from one garment to another. So according to the Gita, you change one body to the other. Depending where you go in your next life is depending what you're doing in this life. So this life is a call for responsible behavior, to responsibly act during this life, to perform actions of goodness, actions of kindness, actions of compassion, and also actions that are offerings to God.
Now, I'm going to jump on another topic.
Sure.
Here. Do you believe in Vedic astrology?
Absolutely, because the Vedas are books of knowledge. The analogy that's given regarding the Vedas is like get a new car, right? And with that new car, you get a manual. And you open, and the first chapter may teach you about the dashboard, and the second chapter will teach you about the transmission or whatever. So with that car, with that machine, you get a manual so you know how to operate that machine. The Vedas are the manual that will help you to function within this machine, this cosmos,
Right.
this material universe. So there are many different aspects of the Vedas. Ayurveda, which my wife practices, which is the science of healthy living and healthy eating, is a division of the Vedas. Jyotish, which is astrology, is also an aspect of the Vedas to help you function within this world, understand how to function in this world, why things happen to you, what possible things could happen to you in the future based on your chart, so many different things like that. The thing is, once we are educated to the whys and wherefores of this world, it becomes a lot less confusing and a lot less stressful.
One of the things is, it says that we are in a play. It's called a Leela. You can always correct me if I'm wrong because I'm still learning. And we are literally acting out a script, which is told through our Vedic astrology chart. But as an actor, we can improvise on things to change things.
Sure.
And it's kind of like what Shakespeare said, right? The world is a stage and everyone is acting.
Right. Shakespeare had some good realizations. The importance of Vedic knowledge is that it really gives us a good understanding of why we're here and when we are here, what we do with it. Mark Twain, this satirist, he was an author and also a philosopher. He said there's two important days in your life. The first is the day you were born, and the second important day is the day you realize why you were born, your purpose in your life. So that's what the Vedas help us to understand. What is birth? What is growth and development? Why are we here? What is the purpose? Why is the human species different than any other species?
Yeah, well, we have that intellect, right?
We have that ability to reason, to look at the world and question, and to ask. The first question of human life should be, who am I?
Yeah.
And then the second question should be, what is my purpose in life?
He does teach the Gita online. I will be putting how to get involved in that class.
Your presence is the greatest present.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot. Feel free to ask questions. I'm sure Lakshmi would love to answer them. I could pass them on to him.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.